to the United States, mostly in Florida. In 1965, Congress passed the Immigration and Nationality Act, which did away with quotas based on nationality and allowed Americans to sponsor relatives from their country of origin. So as a result, there was a huge shift of immigration in the United States, and many of the communities in the United States who aren't from Western European background typically find their origin in this period from the 1960s and afterwards. And afterwards, a majority of U.S. immigrants came from Asia and Latin America rather than Europe. Also, by the 1960s, Europe really catches up economically after the devastation of World War II, and there are far fewer people who emigrate to the United States due to economic reasons compared to other parts of the world. Okay, so immigration changes, but what happens to Ellis Island? For Ellis Island, it was used as a detention facility during World War I and World War II. During World War I, with the war against Germany, the government became suspicious toward all German-born, non-naturalized citizens. Potential alien enemies, as they were called, were placed under harsh restrictions, and those suspected of harboring pro-German sentiment were rounded up and detained. So, sadly, the blueprint for the detention of people of Japanese ancestry in World War II, this blueprint was created in World War I. Immigration tapered off during World War I, so officials designated Ellis Island as one of the main holding centers for would-be enemies of the state. About 1,500 people were detained there. The island was also used as a prison during World War II when it was used to house suspected Nazi sympathizers. Another reason the Ellis Island decreased in importance had to do with America's changing role in global affairs. By 1925, the government shifted the inspection process from American ports to the U.S. consulates abroad. After World War I, America emerged aggressively as a global power, and it also projected its power in international affairs. And it was simply easier to manage people bureaucratically if they could be handled in consulates abroad rather than handling shiploads of people by the thousands or tens of thousands all in one day at one single port. In November 1954, Ellis Island was closed for good as part of a federal cost-saving measure. All right, well, that's the overview of Ellis Island, and like I said at the top of this episode, about 100 million Americans are descended from those people who passed through Ellis Island, who surged out of ships to be inspected before being allowed to enter their new homeland. I haven't been there personally, but I've heard great things of those who have visited Ellis Island, so you can see all the inspection points, the medical facilities, and everything else. And it really speaks to the stories of those who came to the United States, many of whom had essentially nothing and would even have to work for years to pay off a debt, and build the foundation for many of their family who were able to build lives of prosperity. All right, before I wrap up, I'd like to mention that if you want to look at more resources, check out the show notes for this episode, especially the National Park Service site on Ellis Island. They have a lot of these firsthand accounts that I read from in this episode that they've compiled, and yeah, I recommend you checking that out if you want to get more of a taste of what the history was actually like there. Thank you, Bill, for the question. If any of you would like to send questions to me, you are free to do so, and I would love to take your questions into consideration. So that is the episode for today. As always, I want to thank the Knowlton's Rangers, especially our spy masters, Josh Reddick, Baron Fraser, Chris from Maine, Carl from Norway, Moondoggy from Ohio, Rick Knowlton, Vic and Irene, Mike from New York, Michelle, and Marlene. I'll explain what that is in a second. If you like the show and want to help it grow, there are 4 easy ways for you to do it. 1, like and subscribe to the show on the podcast player of your choice. This helps spread the word about the show. 2, join our Facebook group. Here we can keep the discussion going about new episodes, and you can talk about what you like and didn't like. And you can find this group if you just search for History Unplugged on Facebook. 3, we have an online store with t-shirts, phone covers, and other accessories featuring awesomely bad history puns that were crowdsourced by you, the audience. And you can find that if you go to teespring.com/stores/history-unplugged. That's teespring.com/stores/history-unplugged. 4, and this is really the best way to dive deep with History Unplugged, and that's to become one of the Knowlton's Rangers. If you know your American history, you know the Knowlton's Rangers were an elite spy and reconnaissance group in the American Revolutionary War, but it's also the name of the membership program of History Unplugged. You can join at 3 levels. If you join at the level of Scout, you can hear all the episodes of History Unplugged completely ad-free and get early access to new episodes, at least a week early. If you join at the Intelligence Officer level, you get special bonus episodes, like a 10-part series on the World War II hero Audie Murphy, a multi-part series called Ottoman Lives about different people in the Ottoman Empire, and a series called Rendezvous with Death that looks at biographical profiles of Americans who went to fight in World War I before America entered the war. The last level is Spy Master, where you get all that stuff, but you also get 3 hardcover history books, Forging a President, How the Wild West Created Teddy Roosevelt, Race to the Top of the World, Richard Byrd and the First Flight to the North Pole, and The Last Fighter Pilot, the true story of the final combat mission of World War II. Another bonus is, you can choose a history topic for me to focus on for an entire episode that can go up to an hour, and I'll answer whatever question you have for me, and you get a shout out at the end of each episode. If you want to learn how to become a member of the Knowlton's Rangers, go to patreon.com/unplugged. That's patreon.com/unplugged. All right, well, that is all for my spiel. Thanks for listening to the History Unplugged podcast, from ancient Greece to the Cold War and everything else in between. See you next time.